Hello, and welcome back to what I hope is the last virtual Foot Awards. I've chosen a background that's totally whitewashed. It's a sort of Lord Guyt effect. I thought it was suitable. And I didn't want a silly, inappropriate background. I might as well bid for a government PPE contract. So, I trust you're enjoying this new variant of the traditional event, but to be honest, we're all hoping that it won't be the new normal, and that next year we'll be able to have the old normal event back. That's the one where people in a room talk to each other without masks on and still can't understand anything because they've had too much to drink. Anyway, that's something to look forward to in the future, like increased taxes and long waiting lists and 10 more years of Conservative government. No, I'm only joking. It all depends on the data and the dates, and I'm delighted that you've chosen to join us on your iPad or your phone or your laptop, and that you will raise a glass to our winners. Though do be careful with the red wine if, say, you've just redecorated your home with gold wallpaper. Or if you're listening in the car whilst taking a drive to test your eyesight, do watch out for pedestrians. I just wanted to make those cheap jokes in order to reassure everyone that despite being repeatedly told to move on, get over it, there's nothing to see here, people aren't interested, end of story, journalists have refused to give up and have stuck to those Paul Footian virtues of doggedness and determination in the pursuit of stories that those in power really would rather disappear. So, cheers in the meantime, and it is immensely cheering to see just how healthy journalism remains in this country, despite the difficulties and the challenges and the letters from Shillings. Lovely to get a sort of round-robin letter this week from London's most fatuous law firm. Sorry, London's most famous law firm. Bloody spell check. I am sorry, Shillings. No offence, love your work. Anyway, Shillings sent everyone a letter marked confidential and not for publication, so do keep this to yourselves. It was sent on behalf of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, telling us not to repeat the deeply defamatory suggestion that the Queen wasn't asked and had no idea that Meghan was going to call her daughter by the Queen's famous nickname. But I'm afraid this is true. The baby was going to be called Brenda, the famous private eye nickname for the Queen. Brenda, Diana, Mountbatten, Windsor, and it was all agreed with the palace, but actually we refused permission, and Private Eye now have a breach of copyright action with the Sussexes and the Archie Wellness Foundation. I've just made most of that up. Anyway, back to real journalism. I will be announcing the winner later, but first, I must hand you over to the chairman of the judges, the man who does all the work and who compiles the extraordinary shortlist, Padraig Reedy.
Thank you very much, Ian. It's been an extraordinary year for everyone, of course, and not least for our journalists and reporters. Every year when we start this process, we speculate about what stories are going to come in, what stories we know about, what stories we haven't seen that we're going to find out about. But of course, this year, everyone imagined there would only be one story, the virus. What was so heartening and enlightening and encouraging was to see that there's still a vast range of people out there doing stories that are off the beaten track, that are unusual, or that tell the big stories, but in different and unique ways. The range and breadth of stories was breathtaking, and also from the range of outlets that came from this tiniest micro-local to the biggest international outlets. It's great to see that all these outlets feel they have a place at the Paul Foot Award. We had a record number of entries this year, which again was startling considering, it takes time and effort to put together an entry for this, and most journalists this year will have been extraordinarily busy. So thank you to everyone who did enter in record numbers, as I say. I particularly like to thank my fellow judges who make the judging process such a brilliant and invigorating and enlightening debate every year. That's Julia Langdon, Helen Lewis, Alexandra Heel, Kim Singh Gupta, Amal Rajan, Simon Jenkins, Francis Ween, and Matt Foote. And I'd like to thank Amelia Knight at Midas PR, who's done such a wonderful job in reaching out to publications across the land and making sure that we get the best entries and the very best stories. And also Maisie Glazebrook at Private Eye, who has administrated this prize brilliantly as ever. And now back to Ian.
So this is the Private Eye Paul Foot Award Shortlist 2021. Jonathan Calvert and George Arbuthnot from the Sunday Times. Failures of State, Britain's coronavirus scandal. the Sunday Times Insight team pulled together a devastating account of how the government overlooked warnings and ignored advice in the first weeks of the pandemic, with catastrophic consequences. Harriet Clugston and team, JPI Media, Modern Slavery in the UK. Johnston Press's investigations team created a series of stories for local media, highlighting the disturbing shortfalls in application of modern slavery legislation, bringing the story home to local newspaper readers across the UK. Peter Gagan, Jenna Cordroy and Lucas Amin, Open Democracy, how the UK government is undermining freedom of information. Open Democracy discovered the government's secret Freedom of Information Request Clearinghouse, which singled out unwanted requests from nuisance reporters, undermining the free press, government accountability, and the entire FOI system. Guardian investigations team with lead reporters Felicity Lawrence and David Conn. The Guardian team's detailed investigation into the COVID-19 procurement practices exposed a chaotic system where cronyism appeared to trump experience in the awarding of millions of pounds of government money. Jack Schenker taught us death at the ministry. Focusing on the death due to COVID-19 of Ministry of Justice cleaner Emmanuel Gomez, Jack Schenker crafted a compelling story of how government outsourcing and the gig economy combined to condemn migrant workers to suffer some of the worst effects of the pandemic. Robert Smith and team, Financial Times, The Unravelling of Lex Greensill. The Financial Times' compelling reporting brought the revolving doors of politics and finance to life and documented former Prime Minister David Cameron's dubious role lobbying for financier Lex Greensill to have access to Treasury COVID relief schemes. Matthew Weaver, Pippa Crerar, and Jeremy Armstrong, Mirror and Guardian, Dominic Cummings and Barnard Castle. A joint entry by the Mirror and the Guardian. The discovery that Dominic Cummings had travelled the length of England in contravention of lockdown rules dominated the news agenda for days, what do you mean days, years, and exposed a double standard at the heart of government. Judges at award ceremonies quite often say, the standard of entries was so high, we found it so difficult to choose. But this year, the judges on the Foot Award really meant it, and they forced me to add an extra category. So this year, there is a highly commended as well as a winner, which is a genuine tribute to the quality of the entries, but also quite annoying because it means I have to shell out more money. But never mind, I am genuinely delighted that we have a highly commended award, and it was unanimously agreed by the judges that this should go to Jack Schenker at Tortoise. Everyone was agreed that amongst the larger narratives of the COVID pandemic, this was a classic pull-foot story of an ordinary person, an underdog, the cleaner Emmanuel Gomez, who died and was let down by all of those who were meant to protect him. And the ultimate irony being that it took a journalist to get justice for someone employed in the Ministry of Justice. So congratulations to Jack Schenker from Tortoise, highly commended in this year's awards. So this year's winner is, yeah, Dave, I said don't ring me here. It's too late. It's not going to make any difference. You can't just ring me up. They're not going to change their decision. Sorry, no. The winner is Robert Smith and his team at the FT for The Unravelling of Lex Greensill. Robert, congratulations. Now, I hope you can see this is a check. It's your winning check, and it's a bit Bashir, let's be honest. It's a bit forged. But there will be a real check coming into you to say a brilliant win. Well, thank you very much. Tell me how you got the story and why you thought it mattered.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've been covering Greensill for years at the FT, and I'd actually been covering before I even joined the FT. But we wrote our first story on Sanjeev Gupta and Lex Greensill, who have this kind of symbiotic relationship, as David Cameron put it, in 2018. So a long time ago. So it's been a big political scandal this year, but it's been a sort of financial scandal in the pages of the Financial Times and other newspapers for a lot longer.
You could tell at the judges' meeting that you were going to win, because I just measure how jealous everybody else is around the table. And there was a lot of feeling. And one or two people said it, well, we've all been trying to nail one of these revolving door stories without actually just saying, look, it's happening, isn't it awful? But you actually got one where you could tell it, there was cause and effect, it literally made sense, which was obviously very satisfying.
Well, that's great to hear. Yeah, I mean, I think, look, this is like the intersection of politics and high finance, which is like where the Financial Times sits. And I think like more than that, it's like some really arcane and complicated bits of finance. So like it's where our whole team like come into their own, really. And I should stress, like, I'm not the only winner. I'm splitting that lovely £5,000 check with 5 other people. So Mike Pooler, Cynthia Omerchu, Jim Pickard, Olaf Storbeck, and Arash Massoudi. And they're just a small subset of like the cast of thousands who did this story at the FT.
Well, I mean, hats off to them. I mean, and again, to get a story that's about supply chain finance, which again, many of us might have thought this isn't top of what we're going to read. I mean, requires not just digging skills, but presenting skills and you know, proper journalistic skills.
No, totally. And look, there's people behind the scenes as well. So like, so Tom Braithwaite, Richard Blackton, they're our company's news editors. And they just got this story from the get-go, which, as you say, isn't, you know, I've got a sexy story about supply chain finance. It doesn't always seem that way. And then also, I have to say, the hardest working man at the FT, our in-house lawyer, Nigel Hansen. Particularly in 2019, he had to field a lot of correspondence from
Good grief. We're actually having a credit to a lawyer.
I mean,
I'm going to have to stop the machine.
Nigel has saved my bacon on like too many occasions to mention. So yeah, thanks, Nigel.
Okay, well, we did think, I mean, the judges collectively thought that there were some brilliant individual stories, but there were quite a lot of good mainstream national papers, I mean, including the FT, really going for it this year, which might surprise people in a year when there were so many challenges. Yeah,
I was going to say, like, I don't think journalists should be like high up on people's sympathy lists during the coronavirus, obviously, but like it's been a lot harder to sort of break news and hold people to account from your bedroom, right, or wherever it is. So I mean, it is amazing, like looking down the list, like the strength of stories this year. And you know, we all kind of, you know, we know this is a good story. The Greensill story is a good story, but we're amazed we've won when we look at, you know, things like Barnard Castle, you know, the Insight Team's piece on Boris missing all the Cobra meetings. It's kind of incredible how heavy hitting some of the stories have been given the conditions we've been reporting under.
One of the qualities of your investigation was, as you point out, that it's been going on a long time, and Footy was always very happy to keep repeating and keep adding and keep accreting, as it were, until you got a real momentum behind the story. So it was very much that sort of story. And again, I think he was very interested very early on in this idea of the revolving door, in which we, again, even in this issue, there's loads more of it, but in this idea that this really isn't acceptable. And the way people are conducting themselves right at the heart of government. And I think that's what you found. It was literally inside number 10, wasn't it?
Yeah, indeed. And I mean, it was quite funny because some of us financial reporters on the story, we'd actually known a lot of this for a long time, but because it was outside of our bailiwick, I guess we didn't realize how awful and brazen and shocking it was until we got our sort of politics guys on board, and they were like, wait, he had an office in Downing Street and a business card and no real role. So yeah, we've been tenaciously following this story for a long time, and it's been sort of amazing to see it all blow up this year.
And the other thing the judges were very keen to stress is just the effect of the story. I mean, not just the quality of the journalism going into it and the dedication of diligence, but really just the shockwaves. And I do think, I mean, were you surprised that it just keeps going. You know, civil servants, some of them work for someone else, do they? that was news.
I mean, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff which is apparently common practice, which we didn't realize until this blew it up. Like, I mean, I think I always knew like Greensill, the company, was a house of cards. It's something like our head of investigations, Paul Murphy, once said to me, actually. He said, the thing about houses of cards is they tend to look like houses of cards. And this really did look like a house of cards. But I think it was the scale of the political embarrassment was that kind of took us by surprise. And I think we have to thank David Cameron for that, because he ignored our phone calls for over 30 days and I think made it a lot worse for himself in the process. So thanks for that, David.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, I think he was just sort of payback, really, because a lot of people ignored his over the years.
Indeed. I mean, he did seem to sort of text the world and their mum, it seemed like, last year.
Yeah. And we have got to a point where, again, I think, and all credit to you guys for essentially saying that a supply chain finance problem between two departments of government could be solved by someone just paying their bills on time. that did cut through.
Yeah, I mean, it did seem to be a solution in search of a problem, right? Quite why you needed Lex Greensill to be in the middle of all this was baffling to us, but apparently wasn't baffling to some very smart civil servants. So I don't know, maybe they saw something us mere journalists couldn't see.
I was tempted to say they saw a large payoff, but I think that would probably be unfair, wouldn't it?
No comment.
Excellent. Well, no FT, no comment. We finally got there. Brilliant. Thank you very much again, and very, very well done.
Thanks, Ian. Thank you.
So that's it for this evening. Thanks very much to everyone. Thank you for watching, and a big cheer to our winners for their incredible work, which it's been a pleasure to highlight and to reward in some small way. So thank you especially to them. I'm now going to turn around and start staring at this wall for more lockdown entertainment. Ladies and gentlemen, a toast to Robert Smith and the FT.
Congratulations.
Robert Smith and the FT.
Cheers. Cheers. The FT.